Welcome to episode 3 of Fearless Female Founders, season 1. Let's go. Throughout this season, Kylie and I have been sharing learnings and experiences from our own entrepreneurial journeys. Our hope is to create a community that is supportive and honest and let you know that you're not in this alone. In this episode, we're talking about imposter syndrome, that pesky voice of doubt inside your head. And there's no better person to dig into this with us than Katrina. She is the owner of Forward Counseling, where she provides support for mental health and confronting addiction. Welcome, Katrina. And listeners, we're so glad that you're all here. Let's dive in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Katrina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Katrina, and I, like you had said, work in mental health and addictions. I primarily work with adults one-to-one at this stage in my career, but I have worked in a variety of settings in the past. I have worked with kids, adults, groups, families, couples, and kind of everything in between. So I'm happy to be here today and talk a little bit about, I guess, my journey and as a business owner and in my career as a therapist.
We love that. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about how you got started in your field and your journey as a female entrepreneur. Did you start work with Forward Counseling, or what was your journey to get there?
Sure. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to be in the helping profession, whether that was through social work or therapy. So I was lucky that early on I had a passion for helping people and kind of always had in the back of my mind that I would like to have my own practice someday, but I knew that there was quite a few steps and things that I needed to do, experience, and learn before I did that. So I have kind of strategically placed myself throughout my life in terms of where I have worked in order to kind of cultivate a wide range of skills, I guess, and just different settings that I've worked in. So I have worked in the legal field as a legal assistant. I have worked in corrections. I've worked in residential care, and I've worked in a hospital setting and outpatient care. And all of those settings have really lended themselves to what I do now as a private practice owner and as a therapist. So I've gotten to experience not only the kind of the therapy and patient care side of things, but also the business and legal side of things too. So I think I've just been afforded a lot of really great opportunities that kind of made my dream come true in terms of starting my own business.
So you always knew that you wanted to eventually own your own practice, and you just set yourself up with different learnings along the way. That's really inspiring.
How long have you been in your own practice, Katrina?
So I have been in my own practice for almost 4 years now. I would say about 3.5 years. So I took the leap of faith at the end of 2020 and felt like there was no better time than the uncertainty of that season to step into the uncertainty of business ownership. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
When you made that jump, tell us, we're talking about imposter syndrome today. Were there imposter syndrome feelings as you made that shift? And talk us through the journey of how you made that decision to go for it.
Sure. So, I mean, like I said, I always knew I wanted to eventually get to this place, but it was really a matter of trusting myself and kind of trusting the world around me that I could make it happen. And definitely have struggled with self-doubt and just like low self-esteem and getting in my head as far as like, well, who do I think I am that I'm going to make it? But at the same point in time, so that was kind of the feeling side of everything. Was I just felt like, okay, I know I want to do this, but what if I don't? What if I don't succeed? What if people don't come through the door? What if people decide I'm a bad therapist? And now all of this time and effort and energy spent into cultivating this career, have I had it wrong the whole time? And for a while, I really let that win. but eventually I had to tell myself like, okay, no, you have strategically placed yourself in all of these. You have done the schooling, you've done your research, you've worked really hard. Like, who's to say you can't make this happen? And I had to trust that who I had been to people and who I could be was enough to make it happen. And um, yeah, so like I said, I took the leap. It was not easy, um, but I felt like, hey, you know what? There's so much uncertainty in life right now, and mental health had never been more talked about or more prioritized than during that time. And so I knew there was a little job security there. Um, and I had some long-term clients that I felt trusted me enough that they would follow me wherever I went. And so, yeah, I thought, well, I have to start somewhere. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, there's always a variety of settings that I could go back to that need the help. So
Yeah, that's awesome, Katrina. For people listening, um, I think imposter syndrome is a fairly known idea and a fairly well-known term. It's the doubt in your mind and that inner voice that's telling you like why, who do you think you are? Who do you think that you could do this? But how common is it? How, like, if someone, like, we're listening, I know I've personally experienced imposter syndrome. Kylie, I think we've talked about it before, and Katrina, you just shared your experience with it. Um, so is it something that everybody deals with? As a therapist, I guess how often do you encounter people dealing with imposter syndrome?
every single day, every
Yeah.
single day, I have at least one session where that's kind of the undertone of what's going on for that individual. And I think anybody that says that they haven't struggled with self doubt before, I congratulations on your level of confidence. That is fantastic. Um, but I think, where we might be confident in one area of our lives doesn't mean that in a different area we might be facing some of that self-doubt. So, for example, just like the working mom, right? We might feel so good in our careers, but when we go home and have to tend to littles, we might be like, what am I doing? Am I even doing this right? Or vice versa, right? Like somebody might feel really comfortable with where they're at in terms of being a parent and motherhood, but when they go to work, they're like, I should be home and I'm not doing a good job and I'm not as productive as I once was, or what have you, right? Or sometimes unfortunately we kind of just have it throughout every life area. Um, and I think, yeah, it's very normal. And I almost think it's better if we talk about it, because a big part of combating self-doubt and this imposter syndrome really is like cultivating our support, and having a little sense of humor about it too. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think it's very common, and I talk about it a lot, and it's definitely something that I struggle with too, just being in a helping profession, always wondering like I'm certainly always trying to provide my very best, but I am human too. And so then, if I do make a mistake or, misspeak or kind of miss the mark on what somebody's trying to tell me, it's definitely a vulnerable thing, that requires a lot of humility to go, okay, well, maybe today wasn't the best day, but tomorrow I'm gonna definitely try better. So
Can you unpeel like or unpack the what imposter syndrome is at a very basic level? Like what would you say to someone like what is imposter syndrome at the base?
I I I guess I would say it's asking the question like, who do I think I am? Who do I think I am that I know what I'm talking about? And what will people think of me if I say or do this, and allowing that questioning and that self-doubt to kind of take over and keep you from doing the thing you want to do or saying the thing you need to say. And again, that could go for personal life or professional life. So really at the core of it, it's just second guessing yourself and doubting your own abilities.
I feel that sometimes. A lot of the times. I feel like solopreneurship is challenging, and like you mentioned, like working parents, a lot of our listeners are probably listening to this while tending to littles or on the way to pick up or something like that. So it is really hard to balance it all. So what are some of those common signs that you notice from an imposter syndrome? The questioning, are there other, symptoms or things that a solopreneur or female or anyone could experience or not even realize?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's easy to kind of as I kind of list off some of these maybe traits or symptoms, I think I want to start by saying it's very easy to sort of like dismiss these very quickly, or sort of just try to rationalize them away of like, well, everyone gets stressed, or everyone second guesses themselves, or everyone struggles with self-doubt. And while that is true, it's also being honest with yourself of, but at what point is this a detriment to me, my business, the people that love me, the people I'm serving? So yes, so doubt, self-doubt, negative self-talk, kind of these like internalized thoughts of shame or guilt or even like embarrassment. Um, not taking action, maybe where actions need to take place, or if you're recognizing a need within your business, but being too afraid to implement it. If you know that maybe a tough conversation needs to be had with a coworker or a client and just avoiding it. Um, and and then realizing like what you're putting off in the present day is going to impact your future self, or the future of your business or the future of that client relationship. It's really combating kind of that present day self that maybe is struggling with the self-esteem or the stress or the second guessing, and saying, okay, but if I give in to this now, or if I allow myself to kind of be crippled by this, what does that mean for my future self, and what does that mean for my business? And and confidence comes from doing, right? And so we have to take the action. We have to have that conversation. We have to be upfront about our costs. We have to be, we have to be
Mhm.
straightforward. And the more we do that, the more confident we will feel in those decisions that we have made as a business owner, or as a boss, or even just a friend, a family member, so on and so forth. So,
Yeah. I think it's really cool that you talked about needing to recognize when it's becoming a detriment to you. I also thought about how you almost have to go one step back too, right? Like if I'm realizing it's a detriment to me, I'm also realizing that I'm experiencing it, and maybe some people aren't even aware that they're experiencing it, to even have that awareness that it's being a detriment to their growth. And um so like if you're hearing this and you um have to have that really honest conversation with yourself. Like, is my inner voice telling me these things? Am I always asking, what if this happens? What if this happens? Um, and to actually have that level of honesty with yourself, that, oh, maybe I am dealing with some imposter syndrome, and I need to figure that out.
yeah, it can be really hard to be honest with ourselves about that. And one thing that I like to stress to individuals that are struggling with self doubt or imposter syndrome is feelings versus facts, right? So, like, feelings are not facts. Feelings are feelings. And while our feelings might be completely valid, might be completely appropriate for whatever we're experiencing at the time, they're not always the facts. And so just because I'm feeling like I can't do this, or I shouldn't, or what if it doesn't work out, it's asking yourself, okay, but what is the fact? If the fact of the matter is that the need is there, the clientele is there, you have training or experience in it, we have to focus on those facts rather than, but what if the client doesn't like this? But what if it doesn't land right? But what if it doesn't work out? It's like, okay, so what if? What if it doesn't? But we won't know unless we try it. So the fact of the matter is, I do have training. I do have experience. I do have, I do have the clientele, or I do have the support of coworkers or whatever it might be. So I always say focus on the facts, not the feelings. And even if there's a sliver of fact within those feelings, there's usually a little bit more behind the facts. So, and we can't argue facts.
Can't argue facts. Yeah. You mentioned having support around you when you're taking the leap and just kind of combating all this. And I just think that's inspiring too, and a good reminder to everyone listening and also to myself. When I wanted to start Bondi, I was super scared in my head, and I really leaned on some individuals to help. And I feel like every business owner I spoke to it taking a while for them to get to the point of launching or growing. And so if you're listening and thinking man, I'm really behind, I've been thinking about it forever, it's never too late to do something that you feel called to do. And I think it's important, like you talked to Katrina about talking to people and making it feel known so you're not kind of in a bubble by yourself. So I think just those 2 points really stood out to me as how we kind of combat imposter syndrome in our business and in life.
It doesn't mean that you are failing. It does not mean that you cannot do it. It simply means you are a human having a very human experience that says, I have a fear right now, and I'm a little scared. Um, and and so it's okay to feel afraid and stressed about that, but then also remembering okay, but fear is a feeling. And so what are the facts? So although I am afraid, the fact is I I want to do this. The fact is I have the experience enough to do this. The fact is I am meeting a need that has been identified. So
Yeah. How would you say entrepreneurs could help prepare themselves to handle those moments of doubt or stay focused on their goals?
I would say being, consistently checking in terms of being honest with yourself about how am I feeling in my business? Am I feeling confident? Am I feeling fulfilled? Do I feel happy? Am I getting good feedback? Am I taking criticisms and implementing maybe some changes that need to happen? Um, Whatever it is, but just ongoing self-assessment can really help an individual just identify how they're doing in terms of themselves personally within the business, as well as how the business is doing itself. So I think it's kind of constant self-assessment, but then also having a support group around you. And I'm not talking about just your husband or just your best friend. I'm talking about, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm talking about other people that are in maybe your same industry. I'm talking about maybe a therapist or a coach. Um, so although hopefully your spouse is very supportive of you and your best friends are supportive of you too, it's really calling in a bunch of different lifeboats to bounce ideas off of, to share feelings with, share ideas, get some feedback, get some support, and you'd be surprised just how much you're going to hear the exact same feelings maybe coming from them too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we're not meant to do this alone. So although we might be solopreneurs, um, we are not meant to be solo in terms of our support.
This is great to actually get your opinion on this, Katrina. I don't know if this is a therapist endorsed strategy, but I've named my inner imposter syndrome voice. Her name is Deborah. So no offense to any Deborahs out there, but I got it from being a Debbie Downer, you know?
Oh my gosh.
So when I hear those thoughts in my head, like, what if this doesn't work? I'm like, Debbie, you need to stop.
I didn't know this. I love that.
If that works for you,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh
So
my
if
goodness.
you need to name the voice, you just go ahead and name it, and then you can just be like, you know what? No, Debbie, I'm not listening to you today. So yeah.
No, that's perfect. I always tell people call it what it is. Call it by name. Say, okay, that's my anxiety talking. okay, that's my depression talking, or that's my imposter syndrome talking. And so now that I've identified what this is, I have to ask myself, and how do I treat that? How do I combat that? Because at the end of the day, that's all it is. It doesn't, if we let it become a big thing, it
Then
will
it is.
cripple us, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if we say like, okay, it's just this thing, it's just kind of this box of self-doubt or this box of anxiety. How do I put the box on the shelf, or how do I combat the symptoms that are coming out of that box? So I think, personal personifying it with Debbie is another great thing, and saying, okay, Debbie, you need to go in timeout.
Yeah. And if
He's
any
going
Debbies
time out.
or Deborahs are listening, I apologize. It has nothing to do with your name. Your name is lovely, but it's just the one I picked. So, oh,
Fantastic.
that's funny.
Katrina, if you could give one piece of advice to women struggling with imposter syndrome, what would it be?
Well, I would say to focus on the facts, not the feelings. I would say focus on everything, every piece of evidence that supports why it would be a good idea for you to go into your own business. Schooling, work experience, identified a need. If you have the support, I would say it's always worth trying, and really asking yourself, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? It doesn't work out, and so then you go back to whatever job you were working before.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be ideal, but at least you tried, right?
Yeah.
And cultivate your support, have some optimism, be able to have a sense of humor. And I would say you never know until you try, and confidence is going to come from doing it. So until you start doing it, you maybe won't feel confident in it, but we can't wait around for confidence to come to get things done. We have to just start. So that's what I would say.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Katrina, for spending the time with us and sharing your insight into imposter syndrome. Hopefully, if you're listening, this struck a chord with you or turned a light bulb on for you, and you were able to recognize maybe some of those feelings. Because, like you said, being honest with yourself is really also number one, right? And just not being embarrassed about feeling those feelings, because it is so common and pretty much a universal human emotion. I also liked you mentioned a self-assessment as well, and Katrina has been so gracious in offering a little checklist for you if you're listening to download. It's got a couple questions on it that you can use to just do that little check-in with yourself, once a week, every other week, whatever makes sense for you, to make sure that things are still feeling good, or helping you recognize maybe some of those thought patterns that you might be having. We'll have that in the link to download with our show. And if you are interested in getting a hold of Katrina to set up some support and therapy, Katrina, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm located in Sioux Falls, but I do offer virtual sessions as well. And I would say the best place to contact me would be through my website, www.forwardcounselingllc.com. There's a way that you can send me a message, but it also has my address and office phone number on there. So that's usually where I direct people if they want to get in
Awesome.
touch with me.
Perfect.
I am on
Yeah.
social medias, but I'm not good with them. So
Got it.
my advice is to come see me in person.
Awesome. Well, we'll put the self-assessment download and the link to your website in the show notes. So if you're listening, you want to go check those out, please do so. But thanks, Katrina. It's been really great having you today, and thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Take care.
Thank you.